This podcast is brought to you by Knowledge at Wharton. Please visit knowledge.wharton.upenn.edu for more information.
18 and entrepreneurial. That is fast becoming the million-dollar mission of teens around the globe. Starting a business is thrilling, impressive, and profitable, which makes it all the more enticing to young business owner wannabes. 2 out of 3 teenagers who completed a recent junior achievement poll said they hope to start their own business one day. Beyond a get-rich-quick attitude, entrepreneurship has become a mindset for the 21st century. Companies large and small crave job candidates with entrepreneurial skills such as creativity and passion. Boris M. Silver, a sophomore at Wharton, believes wholeheartedly in the power of entrepreneurship. Hooked on the internet from a young age, he now runs his own sports media business called Interactiva that is focused on Facebook. Knowledge at Wharton High School asked Boris about his entrepreneurial endeavors, as well as how he sees entrepreneurship changing his life and the lives of others. Boris, welcome to Knowledge at Wharton podcast.
Hey.
First, can you tell us about your own experiences as an entrepreneur? What businesses have you started, and how did you first get interested in this?
So, I just was always into just being active in the community. So when I was a little kid, I did a lot of really basic stuff, like I shoveled snow in Connecticut and I raked leaves for people, and soon I realized there's a lot of houses. So I started getting my friends to work for me, and I would basically subcontract out the houses I couldn't do to my friends. So then we started doing smaller parts of the neighborhood, and then we expanded, and eventually I'd be able to get a bunch of houses done and make more money because I was able to essentially hire people. So I learned from a young age, it helps to kind of work with other people and grow. So that was always fun for me. And that's kind of what I did when I was younger. And then came around Yahoo Auctions and eBay, which was at the start of the internet. And I said, this auction stuff's kind of cool. So I started buying up items, selling them back at different sites and making profit there. And then I started getting more money so I could buy more bulk, and basically economies of scale kicked in. So
what kind of items would you buy?
So I really liked the fad hype items. It's things like Pokemon cards, Beanie Babies, PlayStations, PlayStation 2s, all those kind of items that you could easily look ahead of time just by reading the newspaper or just looking online and knowing, wow, this is probably going to be like a big deal. So I'd be able to buy some of those things in bulk and then sell them for decent profits when I was 11 or so. So that was a lot of fun. And then I got more into web design and graphics. Part of that was I got into high school and I enrolled in the graphics program, which was in the technology department. So I got a lot more experience doing graphic design, and I had played around with web design and coding and building websites on my own. So I started building websites for people and working for some record labels, and I worked with a friend of mine who I met in graphics, and we just started making these sites for musicians and bands, and this was actually the start of MySpace. So we got really good at making these promotional pages for artists to reach out to new fans all across the world. So that was kind of the start of my exposure to social networking.
Your experiences with Facebook led to Interactiva, right? So can you talk a little bit about that?
In terms of Facebook, I was just a user in the sense that I use it all the time to stay in touch with my friends, and I loved it. Everybody I know uses Facebook. Everybody in high school wanted to be on Facebook before they opened it up, and now literally everybody in college that I know has it. So in the back of my mind, I just knew this is the internet in a sense for a lot of people in college. They actually have the stickiest website on the internet. So they have 60 million users now, and 50% of those people log in every day. So on any given day, you'll have 30 million people logging into Facebook as of today. So a year from now, the number is probably going to be through the roof. And I just knew there's a lot to be had here. And when they came out with the platform, which is essentially a third-party tool which allows other companies to come in and create software for users on Facebook, I just realized, wow, I can reach 60 million people with anything I make. So I also happen to be a big sports enthusiast, and my whole theory behind building companies is the way Peter Lynch invests in stocks. You do what you know. So, for example, he'll always go to a restaurant before he invests in any restaurant company and just get a sense for the atmosphere. And it's really to familiarize yourself with the market and the product. So I know Facebook, I know sports and fantasy games because I play them with my friends since I was probably 13. So I decided I'm going to make sports on Facebook. And that was the launch of the company.
But what does it actually, what does the company do?
We provide sports gaming and sports content on Facebook. If you look at any major site like ESPN or Yahoo Sports, CBS Sports, it really falls down to two things. There's sports content, which is going to be things like news articles, videos, photos, message boards, etc., where the fans are really interacting around sports-based content. And then the second side is going to be sports gaming. That's where people compete head-to-head in leagues against their friends or people they may have met in different formats of sports games where they get points based on their ability to predict real-life player performance or how teams are going to do. And that's about a $3 billion industry in the U.S. alone.
So how do you make money?
So we make money through a variety of ways, primarily advertising, merchandising, and ticketing sales. Those are really the biggest things in sports, and they're pretty easy to sell because people are really passionate about things like sports.
What about starting these businesses and startup capital? How did you end up getting that? Did one just generate the next, or how did it work?
So part of it, as being a young entrepreneur, it's being able to find these smaller opportunities in a sense that have potential to be larger. So part of capital was probably stuff that I made along the way in high school, but a lot of it was really being able to start out small scale and working with someone to help me build out our first product for very little and being able to launch it. And as it kind of grew, it sort of snowballs in itself. And I like to operate on the idea of leverage. So once you can get a little bit of success, you have to be able to leverage that into the next step. And you have to keep going and building and building. So it's really better to start out small and not invest a lot because it gives you the opportunity to fail a lot easier and move on to the next thing.
So about how many hours do you spend on this, and how does that work in with your education here, the studies and exams and all that?
In the summer, when this first came out, I just got flooded with emails the first 3 weeks asking me to put up more teams and more sports. So I started adding things like NASCAR and competitive food eating and rugby and literally all the sports in the world to aggregate all that sports content, all the logos and information and videos and photos into our application on Facebook. And that was the first 3 weeks, and I probably slept maybe 4 hours a day those 3 weeks. So that was a lot of work, but it was fun. It was really exciting in the beginning times. Now with school, it's definitely a bit more balanced. I still probably overall put in about 40 hours a week on it, and that probably includes stuff like reading news, which I spend about 2 hours a day flat beginning my day doing. So it's harder to balance with school, but I think it's definitely doable.
Can you talk a little bit about the Entrepreneurial Intern Fellowship?
Sure.
And how that led into what you did last summer?
Okay, so last year I saw an advertisement from Wharton Entrepreneurial programs to apply for people who are planning to work in entrepreneurial settings in the summer. And I thought that would be really cool. So I had gotten an internship with a Wharton student who had also started a company. And the company was called MBI. It dealt with mobile devices and mobile commerce. So I decided to work there in the summer. I got the internship, which really, in a sense, gave me this framework to, in a sense, reflect on my summer and put it into a more serious framework, a more serious perspective where I kind of really had to think about what I'm going through. And at the end of the summer, I wrote a reflecting piece where I really just went through and thought back on amazing summer I had.
Did it change the way you look at entrepreneurship at all, that experience?
I think in a certain degree, everything you do is going to change how you look at things. It's all about experience. So the more things you can experience in life, the more information you have, the better decisions you can make. So working at MBI was great. I got to learn a lot more about the process at a very early stage company. And there was another company right next door, Invite Media. They shared office space. So I really got to watch two companies grow. I got to really experience a lot of things, and it was a pretty fast-paced environment. There was definitely a lot of responsibility, and just watching how a company progresses through critical stages in early things, like possibly working with investors or creating strategic partnerships or building up a team and management issues. Those are all the kinds of things I got to essentially see and witness and use in my own company.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you've been managing people since you were 11. Do you have employees, you have other people working for you now with this venture?
So right now I have a partner, and I like to think that we're working together because we're both equity holders and we have really the same vision. So we work pretty closely together. And there's a couple of part-time people who will bring in hire on more of a consulting basis to help us get certain things done. So in a sense, I probably like to work more with people laterally, horizontally, than I like to establish these vertical managerial.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's wrap up with a question we always ask entrepreneurs.
Sure.
What advice do you have for people who want to start out either in high school or college with an entrepreneurial venture?
So I think the key is working at small companies. I think in high school, especially, if you're not necessarily ready to take any sort of step to starting your own thing, or you just don't really know what to start, work at small companies. You'll get a ton of experience, and you really get to literally interact with the people who run the business. Especially in local communities, there's a lot of these small businesses, and just looking outside of your own network or going to talk to people, you can really find certain things that people will need. And part of it might be kind of grunt work, just filing things or getting things moved and stuff. But if it's a small enough company, there are definitely going to be opportunities where you can step up and take on responsibility. And at the end of the day, that's what really allows you to learn, having real responsibility at a young age. So the biggest thing I think for me was being able to work at small businesses and small companies from a young age. In addition to that, really being relentless in who you talk to. When you're young, you can really talk to anybody. And I think a lot of people are intimidated to step up and just send blanket emails to random people. I tried to ask Donald Trump for a college recommendation. It didn't work too well, but I just think taking those kinds of steps, if you do it enough times, you'll eventually hit with someone who you might want to talk to, and they'll probably be able to give you great advice.
Well, someday Donald Trump will be trying to get you to return his calls.
That's right.
Thanks, Boris.
Yeah, thank you.
For more information, please visit knowledge.wharton.upenn.edu.